Welcome to this episode of Open Scripture, where we seek to sharpen the way the church reads her foundational texts. My name is Tracy McKenzie, professor of Hebrew and Old Testament at Southeastern Seminary. With me is Nick Nail, PhD student and worship pastor at the church where we serve. We've been in the flood story. We've now taken kind of 2 episodes to work our way through the flood story. We've focused, of course, on the pattern, this kind of chiasmic pattern, this X pattern that has Genesis 8:1 at the very center. God remembered Noah. We made a few comments about this remembering of Noah and the covenant that God made with Noah and indeed all creation. In the last episode, we're going to make some more comments about that as we go through Genesis 9 today. And in the last episode, which was the second episode related to the flood story, we talked about the analogy between Noah, how he is an analogy to Adam and creation, how the flood is an analogy to creation. And then, of course, we talked briefly at the very end how Noah is also an analogy to Moses. So that's where we've been, and we're going to continue in Exodus 9. But like we have for the last couple episodes, we're going to take a question from one of our Patreon supporters. We want to just say again that the way the podcast is being funded is really through our Patreon supporters. We really couldn't do this very long at all if it weren't for our Patreon supporters. Let me encourage you, if this material has been helpful, to go over to our Patreon page. We should have it linked. Or you can find us on Patreon under Open Scripture. Look at our tiered options. Really appreciate it if you would subscribe there or make a donation and share and like the episodes.
Yeah, so the next question from one of our Patreon supporters, we've kind of hit on this a little bit already, but the question is worth talking about again. Why did the author so quickly jump to marriage as the main topic in Genesis 2 and 3? So we get creation and we go straight into marriage. Why did God inspire for marriage to be such an important topic so early on in the Bible?
Yeah, great question. We asked this question, why marriage? And one of the things we talked about is the author's selection of marriage. In other words, Genesis 1 didn't follow with the 8th day and with the 9th day and with the 10th day, even though we came out of 7 days in the first literary unit. Instead, he went backwards to somewhere to the 6th day or even previous, and he brought in this topic of marriage. And this is the author bringing in episodes, kind of connecting the dots, if you will, into what he wants his point to be. So he had to bring in marriage so that he could get to the seed of the woman. So this is going to be very important. This is why I say that the seed of the woman is not plan B. The seed of the woman was always plan A. We could say that even, especially after the last episode, we could show that mediation or a mediator and a sacrifice of a living, pure being or animal was always the point. And now the author is just unpacking that. So he goes, remember the real point of Genesis 1 is the 6th day. What was one of the unique elements of the 6th day? Male and female. Even though we already saw that probably in the cattle, or it would have been in the cattle or the beast or the fowl. The author makes a point about the image of God and male and female. Sure enough, he returns to that topic in Genesis 2. You have man and woman coming together in marriage. So we made 2 points there. One point was the author saying, hey, marriage is such a big deal for society that I got to unpack this, the importance for society, that it's a man and a woman. And then the second point was I got to get to the point of marriage before I can get to the seed of woman, which is Genesis 3, which is how this seed of the woman is going to defeat God's enemy. In that case, the serpent.
So this is really good storytelling by the author, who's at the end of Deuteronomy, and he's putting together, this writing. And it's almost like a flashback because he's looking forward. He's
Right.
looking for us or waiting for a seed
That's right.
to come. And here he's like inserting this flashback of like, oh no, here's where like this whole conversation started.
That's right.
Back
That's
in
right.
the garden.
That's right.
Because we need this seed to come.
Yeah. Now, just again, as a little bit of a summary of where we have been related to this question of why the seed of why marriage. Again, we went from marriage, that is Genesis 2, to the seed of woman in Genesis 3, who's really going to, again, be an answer to, again, the curse, right? It's the seed of the woman who's going to defeat the enemy who brought in this whole problem. Of course, there are consequences. We moved from there to Genesis 4, which was the seed of the woman who is really the seed of the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Cain's descendants.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Cain was cursed. Cain created murder, or he was the first murderer. And then at the end of Genesis 4 was the other seed of Adam and Eve, who was Seth, which is when men began to call on the name of the Lord. And this call on the name of was important because, of course, then we were introduced to Seth's seventh son in the genealogy, Genesis 5, Enoch, and the 10th son, Noah. Now we know it's actually Noah's seed that's going to reverse the curse. And in the next episode, I said it was going to be this episode, but we really have another episode in between here, where the seed of Noah, the 10th in the genealogy following Noah, is going to be none other than Abraham.
Wow.
And it won't be too long before we find out that Abraham is not the point of the story. It's the seed of Abraham, which at first we think is Isaac. Then we think it's Jacob. Then we think it's maybe Joseph. We find out really it's Judah. And then it's even the seed of Judah who would come in the last days, namely Jesus.
Yeah.
And the nations would be his.
And we get there because of marriage.
We get there because of marriage. That's right. We get there because of marriage. So there you go. There is why the author introduced it so early. That's the plot line, if you will, of the Pentateuch. And that's even why Israel is brought into this story in the Pentateuch, right? The eventual seed of Abraham, really the sons of Jacob who become Israel. And we're going to tie all of this together. This is the idea of coherence that we see in these texts. We took a large-scale view of the panorama of the Pentateuch where we found the Lion King, and now we're unpacking that.
All right, so the flood story has taken longer than we either of us anticipated.
I thought we could do the flood story in one episode, y'all.
No, so we're now on episode 3. But we're going to start in Genesis 9, in verse 1, and this is going to have a little bit more probably application than we've had yet so far. So because this impacts all of us. So verse 1 of Genesis 9. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and terror of you will be in every living creature on the earth, every bird of the sky, every creature that crawls on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. They are placed under your authority." We already said this is a lot of Genesis 1 language. Every creature that lives and moves will be food for you. As I have gave the green plants, I have given you everything.
All right. So again, just like you said, this is all part of that analogy to creation. And you can kind of see the food that is given, the creeping things, the fish, the fowl, the be fruitful, multiply. And again, not only is it an analogy to creation, this is also all part of that, chiasm, right? This literary structure that the author has given us, the whole flood story. This is all part of that. And again, you can go back to the 2 episodes ago where we flashed that on the screen. And now we're kind of ready for the first, what we could say break in that pattern. There's going to be something pretty special here that the author brings out here.
So verse 4, however, you must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it. I will require a penalty for your lifeblood. I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life.
All right. So let's see. was that verse 6 that
That
you
was
just
verse 5.
Okay.
Verse 6.
All
Do
right.
you want to read that?
Read that last part of verse 5, if you will.
I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life.
All right. That's kind of interesting here. I don't see the word murder. It does say from the hand of man, his brother, I will require it, the soul of the life of man. So it's just interesting that the word murder is in there. But that's okay. Again, the point here is that we see here that if someone takes the blood of a man, then God is going to require that blood. So we have really the blood language here, whether it's man or beast, he's going to require that. And then the word, I think what could be a word for murder is coming up here in verse 6.
Verse 6, whoever sheds human blood, by humans his blood will be shed, for God made humans in his image.
All right. So again, the one pouring out the blood of man, by man, his blood will be poured out. So you have this parallelism here. This is poetry. So again, this is the first poetry that we've encountered since what? Genesis 4, probably. I guess there was a little poetry at the end of verse 8, maybe the seed time and harvest language. That could be understood as poetry. Again, we made the point there that here the author is really looking at the sort of eternal nature of this covenant. And here we could say, again, the author kind of returns to poetry right here at the place where the image of God comes about, that mankind was created in the image of God, and therefore that if anybody sheds the blood of man, by man, his blood will be shed. So here we have a return to basically Cain and Abel. We see the mention of brother back in verse 5. From the hand of brother, from the hand of a man, his brother, I will require the soul or the life of man. So we're obviously returning here because Cain took the life of Abel. Now God is basically giving a legal code. This is what the legal code is going to sound like later on in Exodus and Leviticus.
Right.
And we see here that, again, the land has been cleared of any descendant of Cain. If you think about this, right? All that we have left are Noah and his sons and their wives. And so presumably the land has been cleared of any descendant of Cain. And so God now is giving a legal code in response to murder. And we can maybe see, evidence of why God even gives legal code in the future. Right? Because if there's disobedience, or if there's infractions, or if there's danger, if God's putting a fence around humanity and their behavior, then he's going to do it, in a sense, in response to their misbehavior. And again, the emphasis here is it's so important that man is made in the image of God, that mankind has this sort of worth to it and value, kind of intrinsic value, because mankind is in the image of God. Then there's a move to protect that.
Yeah. And also that all humans bear his image.
Yeah.
And that all humans have this sanctity of life.
Yeah, that's right. And here's where we see that even though we've had the fall, even though we've had, the corruption of creation, even though God still admits, I think it was in 8:21, that, the thoughts of mankind, what was it? 8:21, because the formation of the heart of man is evil from his youth. Even though those things are all still true, it's also true that mankind is still made in the image of God.
Yeah.
So we would say this applies to, basically all humans.
So then we have this command. So we can apply this universally, that there's a law against, not taking someone's life. I have a question about the be fruitful and multiply. Some people also use that as a universal command that all humans are commanded to be fruitful, multiply, have kids. Do you think that this is explicit to Noah and his sons, or is this like are you being disobedient by not being fruitful, multiplying in our
Yeah,
context?
great question. Again, it's kind of hard. It's a bit hard to give an answer. I would say the be fruitful, multiply, again, from creation is a blessing,
Yeah.
right? He blessed them and he
Mm-hmm.
said to them, be fruitful and multiply.
So it's not a
So
command in a
I don't
sense.
think it's a command in the sense that we have to have as many kids as we possibly can,
Right.
right? I think there are other things that kind of come in. This is, again, obviously there's denominations that would believe otherwise, right? I mean, the Catholic Church, for one, thinks that you can't do anything to thwart having children. So I just think, okay, this is a blessing. We have, a brain God gave us. We have to think what our capacities are, and there's a lot of details that enter into this question.
Yeah.
As you remember from a previous episode, the highlight of my life, there's no question, there's nothing even close. And you and I have talked about this before, right? That marriage and kids. I mean, everything else is black and white, gray, right? Kids are color. It's hard. No guarantees because they're little human beings. They make their own decisions, right?
Evil continually.
Evil from their youth. But it's the absolute highlight. And so, but I don't think this is a command as much as it is a blessing. And that they're supposed to swarm and fill the land. And indeed, this is what happens. This is Genesis 10, right? Yeah. This is the so-called Table of Nations, which we're gonna have an episode on itself. That this is exactly what Noah and his sons and their wives do. They carry this out, and honestly, so does Israel.
Yeah.
Right, because again, Exodus opens up with the multiplication of Jacob's descendants, the 12 sons and all of their sons, as they move into Egypt.
Right.
And literally use this word swarm here, that they multiplied and swarmed basically in the land.
Well, then that's leads us into verse 8. After be fruitful, multiply, spread out over the earth and multiply it. Then God said to Noah and his sons, understand that I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you.
Okay, so again, now we're returning to this idea of the covenant. So we have our word establish here, which is a very important kind of word that is often used in making of a covenant. In particular, this is a big Davidic covenant term here. And it's none other than, again, the establishment of the covenant. And this is between you all. This would be Noah. It's a plural here. I'm establishing my covenant between you all. It's a plural you. And then even your seed after you. So here this idea of the covenant that we talked about last time continues, and we'll just continue to kind of pull out important details here as you read.
So, covenant with you and your descendants after you, verse 10, and with every living creature that is with you, birds, livestock, and all wildlife of the earth that are with you, all the animals of the earth that came out of the ark.
All right, so this is, I think, significant. This is this covenant with Noah and his sons and their wives is not really merely a covenant with mankind. This is a covenant with all of these different beasts. And I think this, could have implications. Again, I don't really want to get into this, but I'll bring it up, and just in case, I mean, a lot of people ask, well, will dogs be in heaven? And I think we might have even talked about this on a previous episode. But if you wanted to try to establish that, I think this would be an important place for it, right? Because God is making this covenant that basically the earth will not be trifled with, if you will, or condemned again in the same way that he did. He's not going to corrupt all the earth. And he's making this covenant not only with Noah and his sons and wives, but even with these animals.
Yeah. I hope there will be dogs in heaven. I will establish my covenant with you that never again will every creature be wiped out by floodwaters. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth.
All right, real quickly here, we got the establishment of the covenant language again, and then we have this: all flesh will not be cut off, from the waters of the flood. So if you remember back at the beginning of the flood story, we had that all flesh language, and then we had the corruption language. Here's the opposite of it, right? So here's its reverse. We're still showing that chiasm,
Right.
And I mentioned it at the beginning of 2 episodes ago. Here we are at the end. We're still coming out of that language, and we have those two words, all flesh, and this idea of corrupting. Here he says, "I will not again corrupt." There will not be again a flood to corrupt the earth. Verse 12.
And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all future generations."
All right, so there's kind of the eternal nature of it, and now God is also giving a sign. This is the sign that, again, will be for us, and it will be for him, again, to call to mind. And what is the sign?
"I have placed my bow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth, and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the living creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature."
All right, so again, this word destroy is the same word corrupt. Notice all the between me and between you all. So we have a lot of this word between. We have many occurrences of this word between here. I think it's even maybe going into the next verse as well. But he's just repeating this language. There is so much repetition in this flood story, the whole flood story. I didn't mention it in the last episodes, but there's so much repetition here. This is one of the reasons why kind of scholars sometimes talk about this flood story being made of multiple sources. And again, whatever we say about that, the design, the intelligent design that you can see of the chiasm shows that this is a unity.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason to ignore the intelligent design here that we see in this chiasm. It's so clear. And we just have a lot of repetition, but that's okay. I mean, Hebrew likes repetitions. It's repeating things, and sometimes it's the differences between the repetition that brings out the point here.
So verse 16, "The bow will be in the clouds, and I will look at it and remember the permanent covenant between God and all the living creatures on earth."
All right, so here we have the second occurrence of remember. We saw the first remember in 15. We see the second remember in 16. So again, this goes back to 8:1, where in the middle of the chiasm, God said, "I'm going to remember the covenant," or God remembered Noah, right, at that point. So we see here a hyperlink back to 8:1 where this is actually unpacking what it means to remember Noah. He's going to remember the covenant. The sign is going to cause him to call to mind the covenant that he's making between Noah and his sons and the wives, and then really all creation. And this is, again, why I said in the last episode that this really has implications for whether the earth is going to be completely destroyed and God's going to remake something brand new off in some other worldly place, i.e. heaven, like up in the galaxies or the stars, or whether it's really this earth that he's going to remake, restore, recycle, whatever word you might want to use. And at this point, based on this covenant that is forever, for all generations, I would say he's going to restore this one.
Right.
And this promise to Noah is one way that Noah's obedience and Noah's, we could say Noah's righteousness, Noah's sacrifice is the way that he is reversing the disobedience of Adam and Eve in the garden. Now, Noah is not the seed of the woman.
Right.
He is a analogy between, like we said, Noah and Moses, but there is going to be Noah. There's an analogy also, again, we're going to say later, that Jesus is the ultimate seed of Noah. who overcomes death, and again is going to really, he's the one who literally created the heavens and the earth in the first place, and now he's going to recreate them again for our eternal dwelling place.
Yeah. So then verse 17, God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and every creature on earth."
All right. And then it goes back to really this idea. Again, he says every creature, but this is all flesh that we basically opened up the episode of creation with. So again, here we have this an analogy. Really, it's kind of complete here. Now, the full episode here is not done. That is the full literary unit. Notice the next episode. We won't deal with it in this episode, but now Noah is going to have this vineyard. And again, there's going to be a bunch of further parallels to Adam. And of course, there's going to be some differences as well, but there's going to be some similarities, including an act of disobedience. And that's going to reveal more about the author's purposes with the sons of Noah. And we'll continue to unpack that in this short little episode in our next episode. But we should perhaps summarize this one, or if you have anything else related to this.
I was thinking about Matthew 24,
Okay.
where Jesus refers to the flood. And I don't know if this has any tie to what we're talking
Okay, let's
about
hear it.
here. So this is saying that, no one knows the hour or the day except the Father alone. And this is talking about the return of Jesus. As the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah boarded the ark. They didn't know until the flood came and swept them away. This is the way of the coming of the Son of Man will be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, one will be left. 2 women will be grinding grain at the handmill, one taken, one left. Therefore be alert, since you do not know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the homeowner had known what time the thief was coming, he would have stayed alert and not let his house be broken into. This is why you are also to be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. So I was thinking about that, this chapter of 9, there was some application points. So I just didn't know if, Jesus and New Testament application of us just being ready and being prepared and how that kind of ties in.
Yeah. No, I like that because, basically, you said this is Matthew?
Matthew 24.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, obviously, and then Matthew's quoting him, sees an analogy here between the Son of Man and Noah. The Son of Man being this figure from Daniel 7, which receives a kingdom from the Ancient of Days, comes on the cloud of glory. And he's going to come, again, just as the flood came. So probably not one of those things that we necessarily pulled from here, other than the fact that we saw God give Noah a command long before the rain start. So Noah had to prepare and plan and build the ark. And then I think you noticed the language earlier when we were discussing this before the episodes, that on this very day, or on this day,
right,
the flood came, and God shut Noah in and those who were with him. And at that point, it was too late. It's too late for the other individuals. All flesh perished. And the point here of Matthew is that, hey, it's going to be too late when the Son of Man shows up. You got to be ready right now. The Son of Man is going to return. That is Jesus. He's going to return. He's going to restore all the earth, just like this, I would say this covenant suggests. And if you wait until he returns, it's too late. You gotta make peace with him now.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not being taken away to another place. This is this earth. The ones who are the man that remains is the one that was saved here on this earth in this body and physical place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way. Again, this is kind of a real controversial topic,
Yeah.
but that is the way I would read this again,
Mm-hmm.
because of this promise to Noah that's
Yeah.
supposed to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what's the point of the promise, and how is Noah going to quote unquote bring us relief from the curse?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how Noah brought it, and then Noah's seed is really going to finish the program, if you will, when he literally redeems corrupt creation from its corruption.
Yeah.
And this, of course, would be the Son of God, Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
when he returns, and all things are kind of given over to the Father.
Yeah. Well, so then our next episode, we'll learn about Noah's sons, and we start seeing more corruption with one of them, at least.
That's
And-
right. That's right. So the author here has to continue his story. Notice he's not done yet, right? I mean, in a sense, he's just barely getting going. So he's got to continue his story. So he's going to show you, where do the enemies of Israel come from? And these are the enemies of Israel, later on in the land. So now he's going to give us kind of the prequel, if you will, or the backstory to the Canaanites.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, the Canaanites are, basically, again, the people that he's going to, God's going to give their land to Abraham. Abraham's going to buy it, buy the burial plot, by the way. But they're going to come in and defeat the Canaanites and the Egyptians and this, some of the other Perizzites and some of these other people. And now he's got to explain where these other peoples come from. His first attempt at that is one of Noah's sons. So we have a lot more to do. We have a lot more to say about this sort of salvation program, when it's going to take place, how it all fits together here in the Pentateuch. So join us next time as we show how the scriptures are for you and about you.